Alright, I'm just going to give a few minutes before we get started, and hopefully you can hear me. The microphone worked last time, so let me know if you're having any trouble with the sound or the video or anything like that. But again, I'll give it a few minutes before we get people, or waiting on people to jump on. And in the meantime, I'm going to have some coffee. And just a reminder for those of you that are tuning in or watching the replay, this is class number 2 for the mini-series that I'm running on making. Sorry, allergies are kicking off, so my voice sounds a little bit scratchy and all that hilarity. We're getting back into another warmer trend that seems to make everything worse for, you know, what you feel for the allergies and stuff. So anywho, some idle chatter again while we wait, but I do apologize. Yeah, my voice does sound a little rough and ready, but it is allergy season pretty much runs all year round these days. So fun. But we have a beautiful day here in southeastern Michigan. It's hazy from the smoke coming from Canada, so hopefully it's not impacting anywhere that people live. I haven't heard anything that it is, but hopefully not. It's just impacting the sky here. We get like that haze from the smoke coming down, and today's not quite as hot, I think, as it's supposed to be in the next few days. I think we're still going to be at about mid-80s, I think. So hopefully you guys are also having good weather wherever you're at. I know the UK and Europe were having the heat wave, but I'm not sure if that's still going on or not. Could be, because weather's pretty demented these days. And this is why we like to craft, because it helps us find our happy place with all the cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs going on, especially with the weather. So, alright, just another minute or so, and then I will go ahead and jump in. And like I said, this is the second class in the mini-series. And today I'm going to build on what I started on in the first class, where we did a very basic card, and this time I will be more mindful that what I'm attaching is going in the right direction on the card base. But I'm gonna layer up on that with adding in ways to build dimension without adding actual stuff to your card. So it gives the illusion of layers and all of that without adding bulk, especially if it's something that you're going to be mailing, and you know, like just like a regular card mailing, then you want to keep the layers as low as possible, you know, which, I mean, you can pay the extra postage for them to hand sort the more dimensional cards, but if that's not something that's feasible for you, then I wanted to come in with some quick and easy tips on ways to make it look dimensional without, again, like I said, adding to the bulk. So that is what we're going to be doing today. And the goal is to try to keep these classes to around an hour. And I should be able to do that. Less is always better, because then when we get into the next class, then maybe we can spend a little bit more time for the third and final class, where you'll be working with stencils and texture paste and stuff like that. Mediums that take a little bit more time to dry. Even using my little heat tool, it takes a little bit more time, so I'm trying to conserve time, I guess, in these videos, and then we can get a little more time for that last class. Sorry, too many words trying to come out all at one time. So it'll make sense though as we go along. So I apologize for the verbal bobbling here, because I have so many things that I want to say and I have to slow my brain down to get them all out. But I did make a little note card to keep me on track with the points that I wanted to make. So for a quick overview, what we did in the first class, like I said, it was just very basic card making, what you can do if you don't have a lot of supplies, how to take a sheet of cardstock, cut it in half, and how that gives you 2 card bases. And this is something that typically works with whatever size card stock that you're using. You can apply this to a 12 by 12, an A3, an A4, A5, whatever. I mean, if you want to make notelets even, it doesn't matter the size, the concept is the same. You can take your sheet of cardstock, cut it in half, and that will give you 2 card bases of whatever size that you're working with. And then I also wanted to keep the supplies minimal, of just using some basic cardstock, using basic elements to decorate it, to keep it very simple. I didn't even add in any Nouveau drops or gemstones or anything like that. I kept it extremely very basic. It was basically the card base, some cardstock, some ephemera. I did just a little bit of inking to help define the elements on the card, but that was it. And then finished it off with the sentiment. And again, like I did in the first class, I'm going to be pulling from supplies that I have from Dawn at Shiny Silver Treasure. There's odds and ends from other card making kits and supplies that I got from her, as well as elements from the final collection that she released for this year, which is Tommy the Turtle. And that is so cute. She based it on a money bank that her dad has, and his name is Tommy, so that's how the turtle, Tommy, got his name. So that's really cute. It's really fun when you get to hear the backstory and the designs and stuff that Dawn comes up with. So in any case, that is again just the quick recap for what we did in the first class. So basically we're going to be using all the same elements from the first class. I did put a post up letting you guys know if you wanted to review I think I put the details in one of the posts for the first class, but it's basically the same. You want some cardstock for the bases, you want cardstock or paper in different patterns, whatever it is that you have on hand, any embellishments that you want to use for today, and also if you have any ink. That's the one new thing that we're adding on for today, because again, it's showing you how to add dimension without bulking up the card. And then you would also need scissors. This is also an important little fun trick that I'll show you here in just a little bit. So that is my recap, and I don't want to go too much farther on that, just because again I'm trying to keep this down to about an hour. And then, like I said, for the third class we'll have to allow a little bit more time, just because we're going to finish that one off with coming in with stencils and texture pastes and stuff like that, which it's still fairly simple, but you do have to allow a little bit more time for the mediums to dry. So anywho, so good morning and good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be tuning in from or watching the replay from. Hopefully you guys are having a good evening, good day or night. It is morning here, and again I do apologize, my voice does sound a little rough and ready, but that is allergies. We already got the cootie bug portion of my summer out of the way a couple weeks ago, so for that I'm glad, because it makes it a lot easier to do these classes if I don't feel like butt from a virus. Alright, another sip because throat is a little bit dry. And we are going to go ahead and get into it. So again, just using cardstock is one way that you can add dimension without it, by doing the matting layers and stuff like that. But even if you have, say, you're only using one piece of paper to make a layer on the card, I will show you a few ways, things that that you can do using your scissors or inks to build dimension without actually building dimension, no physical dimension. And I know you will hear me repeat these points quite a lot, so I am sounding repetitive on purpose because, again, it's just reiterating what we're doing and getting that point through. Because, again, I don't know how much of the videos or the replays that people are watching, so I'm trying to make a point to at least get the point in on most of the segments that they might be watching, if that makes sense. Because, not when you sit down for a video, sometimes you don't always have time to watch the whole thing. You'll kind of try to pick up key points because everybody's busy. So I try to carry that in with how I'm filming the videos, or like for these live streams, how I'm presenting the information, if that makes sense. So again, we've got the 2 card bases I'm pulling in. I did bring in some pre-made card bases just to save time for today's demonstration, because in the last one I did show you an easy way to separate the card stock to make 2 card bases. And I did end up having to use that second one because I put the stuff down on that first card upside down. But that is definitely real life crafting. So what I am also going to do, you will need a paper trimmer, or again scissors and a ruler if you don't have a paper trimmer. If that's how you need to separate or cut down your paper, you can do that with just a ruler and a cutting blade. Or you can use the ruler to make a line and then cut along that line. There's a few options if you haven't been able to invest in, or you have no interest in investing in a paper trimmer. Because for some people, this may be just a way to make a card to cut down on expense for personal use, not necessarily that you're looking to get into the crafting industry. So I try to also keep that in mind when I'm going through the demonstrations and the explanations of what I'm doing, or the different ways that you can do something. So, as always, keeping the cost down in crafting is probably the number one. So that is what I try to focus on. And again, because no shade to the other paper, I absolutely love this green paper from Dawn's collection. And I have to remember this is A5 or A4 cardstock. I'm never quite sure where to cut this in half, so I'm just going to wing it. And then I will trim off the border. So we got a straight piece of green cardstock, if that makes sense. I typically don't have borders on things. When I fussy cut out, I typically don't leave a white border, but there is a time and place for having that border, either in your cardstock or in your fussy cutting, if fussy cutting is something that you do. And I am getting so much better. So, okay. Oh my god, I have no nails. Downside to being a lunch lady, we can't have nails as part of the codes that we have to follow in serving food. So, and then on top of that, my nails have never been great to begin with. So I apologize for the moments when it takes me a second to pick something up, especially coming off of a silicone mat sometimes. Like, you can't, it's funny, it's like you can get grip, but you can't get under the thing you're trying to pick up. So, alright. Okay, so I got my cardstock, what I'm using, and for, again, the first demonstration to start out, I am going to cut 2 panels down to roughly 4 by 5 1/4. And I will show you 2 simple techniques to help give you the illusion of dimension. And let me just see. Okay, that's going to be a little less than 4. I think it's about 3 7/8 at a guesstimate. But again, the size of the cardstock that you're using doesn't matter. It's going to be, you're going to cut it down to the size that you want to work with, if that makes sense. So, all right, let me get this out of the way. Okay, so for the 2 cards, there are 2 ways that you can go to add dimension without bulk, I think was the phrase I was trying to say earlier. So let me go ahead and get some tape, because again, using the double-sided tape here will go a little bit faster than trying to use glue. But I also did state in the first class that when I'm working with a layer that's going to be attached directly to the card base, I tend to use tape on that bottom layer just to avoid any warping or the glue showing through, because sometimes you can see the lines of the glue depending on how quickly you get your layer down. If the glue has a chance to start drying, then you're more likely to see the lines running under the paper. Especially my favorite glue to use is the art glitter glue, and that dries really fast, like hella fast. I don't think I have another glue that dries that fast. So for this reason, I developed the habit of using double-sided tape, or I have a tape runner if I'm doing a lot of bulk crafting. That makes it a lot easier. But typically it's just a roll of the double-sided tape will do. And again, that is what is going to go for the layer that's going to be directly attached to the card base. And this is a personal preference. You could do glue. If you have a little sponge thing, when you put the glue down on the cardstock, maybe you might want to spread it out. Again, how quickly you work or have to work will depend on how quickly your glue dries. So just something to keep in mind. All right, I just went ahead and put tape on both layers. So to trick the eye, there's a lot of methods that you can do for creating the optical illusion of depth. And today I'm going to focus primarily on 2, because 1, these require minimal supplies. There's other gizmos and gadgets that you can get that will do this for you. But again, I'm trying to keep this more on the basic levels of getting into the card making. So let me demonstrate. The first one is literally as simple as taking your scissors and running them along the edge of the cardstock. And what you're doing is you're roughing it up. 1, it gives it sort of a vintage, grungy kind of a look, which is still, I believe, really, really popular. And because you're making that edge, I don't know how much that's going to show, but by roughing up the edges, it makes the paper edges look thicker, which makes that piece of cardstock look thicker. So I'll see, I'll zoom in when I'm done scraping up the edges. And normally I will do this off the desk, just because then you get the little floofy bits flying everywhere. They can be hard to get off of the silicone mat. But for today, again, for the demonstration purposes, I will work over my craft desk. So basically, for this method, it is probably the most inexpensive way to do that, because it's paper and scissors, and that's it. And just taking a second to rough up that edge, and you have an immediate appearance of depth to your layer, even if it's just 1 layer. Alright, let me grab a baby wipe here to kind of wipe those off, because they'll be flying everywhere and then I will be distracted. Lord knows I do not need any help being distracted. If my idle chatter at the beginning of the live stream is any indicator, especially when it's early and my brain is still a little bit foggy. So, okay, all right, I think I got most of them. So that is technique number one. Paper, and scissors, and you just open up the scissors, run them along the edge of the paper, and scrape. And you can scrape as much or as little. A lot of times I like to have fun where I will make indentations and cut into that edge and then fold it back. It makes it look more distressed. It adds a little bit more interest. But again, it's not costing me anything at all. So that is the first technique, and what I'll do is go ahead and attach that, and then I will hold it up, or actually I'll zoom down and hold it up, so hopefully that will give you a better view of what I'm talking about in terms of making it look dimensional, even though you're only working with one piece of cardstock. And that's it. That is about as basic as you can get in terms of adding quick dimension. The card is still more than flat enough to go through the regular post without having to have added postage. Okay, so, and in terms of lining up the layer that I'm putting down, just a side note, for my eyes, the way my eyes see what I'm doing, it helps me line it up better if I turn the card base upside down, provided, of course, I remember to turn my layer upside down, which is what I forgot to do. My card was still upside down when I was working on that first card, and I need to be better about double checking the flap to make sure that I have it going in the right direction, but I'm getting there, better than I used to be. I chunk a lot less cards these days because I am getting better at checking. So, alright, I did put it on correctly. My card base is now right side up. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in for a little bit here so you can see. I think that's about as far as it goes, right? Okay. So, one piece of cardstock, and you can see, let's see if I can bring that up a little closer. I know lighting is an issue, because now you can see, look at that, it gives the illusion of dimension without having anything else added on. And that is just one piece of cardstock on that layer. That's it. So you could play on that and you could ink up the edges, and that would add a little bit more dimension, but because I am focusing on basic and simple, and for this method maybe you don't have any inks, so that's why I'm not doing any inking on this layer. Okay, so that is the first basic simple technique of adding dimension. Let me move that off to the side. Now for the second one, you're taking the same, basically the same piece of cardstock, same size, and yeah, let me see what color I want to use. I think I'm going to go, I remembered to get my ink drawer down. I store my ink pads in drawers, and that makes it a lot easier if I'm working on a project. Rather than going back and forth behind me, I just pull the whole drawer out, have it sitting next to me, pick out the colors that I want, and then when I'm done, pack them all up and put them back in the little drawer thing behind me. So I think I have videos on that I did at the beginning of the year. If you're interested in ways to store stuff, you can go check that out. I think it's room organization and something on my playlists. But again, I do not want to get off on too much of a tangent here. So let's see, what color do I want? I could do that. Let's see, because this is not going to be a class on color combos, so I just need to pick one. You know what, let me do some ink blending, because again, it's giving that illusion of dimension, and I think a darker color on the bottom will show up a lot better. So, alright, so the next tip, if you have inks that are available to you, but technically if you have any kind of paint, like if you have kids paints or even crayons would do the trick, depending on whatever you have in your stash. I like the Distress Oxides because I have them and they're quicker and easier to blend. So that is why I have selected them. But anything that you have that will color the card base will work. So just so you know, the only thing you would have to be careful of if you're using like another wet medium, like watercolor or anything like that, is make sure that the card base is of a weight that can handle it, because otherwise you will get some serious warping, or it will start pilling really quickly. So just a little note on that. Alright, so the next way to give that dimension is by doing some blending. And because I have a large panel here, I'm only going to need to ink up the edges. So you don't have to ink the whole card base, which cuts down on the use of your supplies, which means you're not running out of your supplies much. I don't honestly know how long it would take me to use up this Distress Oxide pad, but either way, you know, anywhere that we can cut corners to reduce how much of our supplies that we're using to make them last longer is a good thing in my book. So again, I'm just going around and inking up the edges. And for the contrast, again, to help pump up that illusion of depth, I decided to go with this darker green. And if you're curious, I'm using the Pine Needles Distress Oxide by Tim Holtz. And I prefer the oxides. It's a little bit easier on my hand for blending. You have to, or at least it feels like I have to work a little bit harder to blend the Distress inks as opposed to the oxides. And if you do a lot, then sometimes you definitely want to go the easier route so you don't put too much wear and tear on your hands or your wrists or anything like that, because my hands are already getting shot from all the heavy lifting and stuff that I have to do working as the lunch lady, because the pans are really heavy, the cases of food that come in are really heavy, so I try to be careful and preserve what I've got left in my hand strength and use and all that by taking it easy or finding shortcuts to do stuff here in the craft room, if that makes sense. So anything that I can blend easier, spread easier, cut easier, or anything like that, then I definitely take advantage. Okay. So as you can see here, I just inked the outer edges, and I might as well just go ahead and leave the thing zoomed down so you can see it a little bit better. Just trying to remember to keep my hands and everything in the middle. So now I'm just going to go ahead and take that piece of cardstock and let me get it lined up. Wow, that came out pretty good. I did not turn it upside down. I am impressed. Usually when I come at it from this angle, it ends up with a slight tilt to the right or the left, depending. So that is the second and inexpensive way to give the illusion of dimension. By inking up the edges, I made that cardstock now a nice dark green color to give a good contrast. And adding in that matting layer there, now it looks like you've just used 2 pieces of cardstock. And there you go. And then for another fun tip, tip, playing off of this one, if you want to get super fancy and make the card look bulkier than it actually is, you can take this and combine it. Either inking up the edges on this one, or taking your scissors, and you can actually just rough up the edges of the card. You have to be careful on the spine that you don't scrape it too much and cut into the card, because then of course you would have a split in the spine. But you can always use your scissors and do the scraping, and it's going to do the same thing as that first demonstration. But now I've just added a little more depth on this card, like that one. So, alright, sorry, I'm having a brain fart. Let me just wipe this up and get brain and mouth back in sync here. Okay. So the fun thing also is these 2 basic techniques can be used essentially at any point in your card making. You can do it like I did here, where you have just the one flat layer and you do the scraping, and then you put a little bit of a tear into the edges just to add that distressed, or that extra distressed look. Or you can do your inking to give that contrast and color to make it look layered. Then when you're done adding that bottom matte layer, then you can take your scissors and literally scrape along the edges of the card base, and that also adds dimension where there isn't actually any. So if you can see that now, that card base looks a little bit thicker with dimension just by doing the scraping method. But again, you can do this on a few other steps or later steps in the process. So I'm going to also demonstrate that. So let me move this. I will not need it because I'm just going to work with these 2 card bases for this next part. Okay, so let me pick out which elements I want to work with and show you what I mean, that you can do this at any step. So, ooh, got a fuzzy. Alright, so let me bring in some more of the flowers. I got the fussy cutting started just to cut down on time. So let me do a few flowers here. So, alright. No, let me use these. And when I'm done, I realize I'm going to need to use some Goo Gone. I've been getting adhesive stuck, or adhesive leftovers stuck on these scissors, so now they're sticking to the paper. But I do not want to take the time to do that here. So, alright. Yeah, just quick snips here to finish fussy cutting these flowers to use for the demonstration. Okay, there's one. Oh, I didn't start that one, sorry. There's one of the other ones that I pre-cut. You know, we'll just do another one of these, I guess. Yep, okay. Alright. Okay, let me just cut this one, and then the large one, and then we'll be good to go. Alright. Get that tip off. Yeah, this is making the fussy cutting experience for you much faster, because if I was straight up fussy cutting these right now, it would be quite hilarious and it would take forever. And I do not want to make you sad watching me with the struggle. Okay, swoop that one and finish off this one. So hopefully, if you guys have any questions, as always, you can put them in the chat, or if you're watching the replay, you can put it down in the comments, and I will do my best to get back to you as soon as possible. But hopefully I'm giving you some good basic tips, because even though I'm doing more techniques as we go up through this one and then next week's live stream class, I'm still keeping it within basic levels, where we're bringing in a little bit of mixed media elements next week, or even today is a little bit, could be construed or considered like a mixed media kind of a vibe. Alright, let me get these out of the way. I'm telling you, man, these nails do not want to pick up stuff. Alright. Especially on a more of a grip type surface. Okay, so now we have our embellishments for this one. And like I did last week, I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit of ink blending around the edges. And I believe I used, I'm going to stick you over there, I used the seedless preserves. Seemed like a good match for the color in the flowers. So let me just tuck those out to the side. Let me blend this really quick. And then I can show you how that same technique can be brought in for your embellishments. So let me just ink these up really quick. Just working on getting rid of some of the white along the edges where the paper, the white part of the paper shows from, because when you fussy cut sometimes you can't always cut it 100% cleanly, so this is where inking up the edges sometimes can come in and disguise any, you know, like any areas where you see more of the white cardstock like you have here. You can hide it or blend them in, if that makes sense. So yeah, it's a struggle this time for coherent thoughts, so I appreciate your patience. It is turning into an interesting morning. Okay, so we got this last one, and I think it's still doing good in time. Wow, it's been 40 minutes already? Holy moly. Okay, we are going to step it up a little bit. And I think we are most of the way through the demonstration at this point, so that's good. Alright. So I got my embellishments inked up, and I am going to go ahead and wipe that up so I don't smear it. Using the distress oxides usually aren't too bad. They don't typically spread around too much, at least unless you're adding water or something to the surface, but just in case. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and lay down this bottom layer. Alright. It is truly amazing how quickly time goes now that the live stream has started, because I can't believe it feels like it's only been like 10-15 minutes and we're almost 40 minutes in. 35 if you count the first 5 minutes of just chatting. Okay. Alright, so while that sets, I'm going to go ahead and show you what I mean about using that scrape method to add dimension. So taking the same concept of using the edge of the scissors on the embellishments now, I'm going to go ahead and scrape up the flower petals. Okay. And you can also curl them up a little bit to add dimension, to make them look thicker than what they are. Because what it's doing by doing the distress, it's you know, I'm going to leave off on that. I can't think how to explain that, at least not coherently. So I'm going to cut myself off there. So I'm going to go ahead and distress this other one. And I don't mind that you know that I had just inked these up. But that is a-okay, because you still get some of the purple on the inked up edges worked in. So now you can go ahead and build the center of your embellishment like that, or I can bring this one off to the side and again, this is a subtle way of adding dimension without adding bulk. So I think what I'll do is I'll glue this one down here and this one here. So now with a little bit of scraping, this card looks a lot more dimensional than it would. And I will grab last week's card and show you what I mean, because I think showing you is going to be a lot easier today than trying to explain it. Because, yeah, brain and mouth are not in sync at the moment. And given that it's a live stream, you know, I can't stop. So my apologies. Hopefully the information is making sense by you seeing what I'm doing. Even if I am not speaking in coherent sentences. Okay. Alright, so while that is setting, and again, it's the art glitter glue that I filled this bottle with, it should dry really quickly. So bringing in last week's card, if you put the two right next to each other, here, let me scooch those over. Even at this point in the demonstration, this card is finished, and it has more elements on it. If you look at it, this card looks thicker and it looks like it has more bulk than this one just by doing the scraping, because it's adding the illusion of depth without actually adding physical stuff to the card. So these are small things that you can do to make something look thicker than what it actually is. You've got the scraping method, just you, the paper, and scissors. You can do it to the matting layer. Am I still in the screen? Nope, going off. Let me go back out. No, other way. So it's just you, paper, and your scissors running it along the edge and creating that illusion of depth or thickness that is not actually there. So this card is still flat. It will still go through the post without any additional postage or anything on it. And it also has more interest visually and that whole thing, but that would be like a whole separate thing of getting into techniques to add interest and details and stuff like that. Because again, the focus for here is creating the illusion of depth with either basic supplies or beginning or very little skills in card making or anything. I mean, you don't have to have like a PhD to do the card making. You really do learn a lot as you go if you're in the beginning phase. So that's where, again, I'm trying to keep this like geared toward those of you that are new into the card making or newer. Or maybe you have been in a while and you've never seen anybody distressed. There's always a little something that we can learn pretty much at whatever level you are at. Because there are people that I watch that do the paper crafting and make cards. I have never ever seen them scrape along the edges to give that illusion of depth, because one, that may not be their aesthetic, or two, it's possible they've never seen that trick yet. So, because I didn't know about it when I first got started, it was just cutting down the cardstock. I would use ribbon to create borders to separate out the two. Hey, Christine. Yeah, that's okay. I know it's a little bit later in the day, but always happy to see you here. Same to you, Lorna. Hopefully you guys are having a good week so far. I know it's only Tuesday, but never hurts. Never hurts. So, so doing the scissors and the scraping method is a really quick and easy way, definitely the cheapest thing I think you can do to add dimension to your card. And then the other one was inking up. If you have inks or whatever mediums that are on hand, coloring the edges of the card base and then putting your layer on top of that also adds the illusion of dimension. And then again here I took it even a step further and combined the inking and the scraping method for adding the dimension to the cards without physical bulk. So again, I am repeating these things on purpose, not just because my brain is struggling today, but also just to reiterate that point, because it is important, and I don't ever want anybody feeling like you have to buy all this crap or buy 8 pounds of stuff to make a card, because you absolutely don't, especially if you're just doing this for personal use. But even if you were getting into card making, there's so many ways to keep the costs inexpensive, if that makes sense. So that's why I'm really coming at it from basic, and then building up from there. So if anybody has any questions or anything like that, like I said, leave them in the comments. Or if this is the replay again, well, it would be the chat. Sorry, we're still live. But if you're watching this on the replay, then if you have any questions. And then just to reiterate what I said earlier, for the next and final chapter in the mini-series, I'll get into texture pastes or stenciling and things like that. And that's a little bit more towards inexpensive ways to add interest to your card making, again, without having to buy a ton of stuff, especially now, like I said in the last video, that the dollar stores or the pound shops or the thrift stores and stuff like that, or charity shops, whatever you may call it, they're really, I cannot stress the importance of those kinds of resources for cutting down the cost of your supplies by going to the discount stores first. Go through your charity shop or your thrift store first and see what you get. There's even estate sales. My friend sent me a photo, and I think that was from one house. The amount of bins this lady had in storage, crammed with craft supplies, and she had all kinds of stuff. I couldn't tell a whole lot of what was in the drawers because the photo would only zoom in so far on the details, but estate sales, you know, or garage sales, people might be moving out of the craft, you know, doing crafting, and you can get a ton of stuff at a garage sale for much less than looking to get it new. And then, you know, if you do need something that you have to purchase, scour the internet, go through Google search, find out where you can get that thing on sale, or check Amazon. Sometimes if you haven't already seen that, they will include coupons. So not only if you're a Prime member, you're not getting the cost of shipping, but you can also get a coupon. And Amazon is the only, I know there's more outlets for having stuff sent to you, either going to the shops online, but just as an example, because I know there's a lot of people, especially in the crafting community, that rely on things like Amazon to get stuff cheaper and cutting out the cost of shipping. So there's a lot of options. Again, I don't want to get too much into that here. Today was just going over 2 quick, very basic techniques of adding the illusion of depth on the card. Concept of using like stencils and stuff like that. So whatever you have, if you have supplies, or if you needed to pick something up because you're interested in crafting along, please go to the discount stores first, because pretty much anything you can get there will save you a ton of money. You could even, for a texture paste, if you wanted to pick some up, if at your discount store, look for little tubs of wall spackling to fill in holes. That is absolutely phenomenal and a good and expensive way to get texture paste rather than going to buy the brand name stuff. Does the exact same thing. It will work exactly the same way. It will dry white depending on which type you're using, but you could add a little bit of paint to the wall spackling to add color if you want. I mean, it's endless. And the more I keep going on about this point, I'm wondering if I should have a series on how to make stuff from scratch. You know, what's a cheap way to make texture paste, stencil butters, or not sure if I can pull off knowing how to make Nuvo drops, but if there's a way, I'll see if I can find out. But to get back to the point of today, is again, keeping it simple. This was class number 2, and easy ways, inexpensive ways to add dimension to your card to make it more fun and interesting without busting your bank. So hopefully, again, let's see, where are we at? I am at 54 minutes. Despite the glitching between the mouth and brain, hopefully I got most of the point across, or all of the point across that I wanted to make for the intermediate class. And then next week will be the next and final class in this series in incorporating texture pastes and stencils and all that kind of stuff. So thank you guys again, as always, so much for watching. It is always so much fun hanging out with you. And, you know, YouTube being YouTube, if you could help me out for the channel, I would appreciate it. For the like, the comment, the sharing, commenting, that whole thing, because that is what the algorithm loves. So thank you as always for your support. And okay, all right, Lorna, I will do that. We will work on a mini series of showing how to make homemade texture paste. And really quickly before we go, I will let you know what has really been driving this point home in my head. Let's see, which one is this? I got 3 tubs, and I'm sure everybody can relate to this at some point. I got 3 tubs of the Distress texture paste in the Sparkle. This is a Ranger product. This thing was unused, and this is how it was when I opened it, if you can see that. It is one solid, mostly dried block of texture paste, and this was new. This was new. And I'm like, you know what? This stuff isn't overly expensive, but it's not cheap either. And I feel like we can all agree that why are we going to want to waste money buying this stuff? No guarantee it's going to come usable, as case in point in my hand. So that is what has kickstarted me in learning ways to make just about anything that I can think of. So yes, I will Yeah, that is totally okay. This is all new territory and learning how to do these mini classes, so no worries on that, Lorna. But I do appreciate you being here. That is for sure, because one, it is always fun to see you. So that is never a bad thing, whether late to the party or watching the replay. So I will work that out, because I was going to do a mixed media series, but I think I will take that concept first and do live demonstrations of how to make the texture pastes, the stencil butters. It's amazing the amount of resources that allow us to be able to make our own stuff. So I will do that. That will be the next series. Let's see, next week will be the third one. After that, I have to reopen up my kitchen. So the second mini-series class going on making these homemade things, just a heads up for you guys, that will have to rotate out to the weekend, because at that point school will be back in session here already. It's demented. Can't believe how quick the time went. So those will be like weekend classes, either Saturday or Sunday, depending on what I've got going on in the background. Because we are also gearing up for craft show season, and I don't know how much you guys can see behind. I think most of it's off camera, but I've got my project baskets all stacked up waiting for me to get them done, because like I have jack squat ready to go for what I need. So all right, so thank you guys again. It was so fun hanging out with you, even if it was only for a few minutes. We are now at about an hour. And again, if you guys have any questions, and Lorna, while I'm thinking about it, if you guys think of a specific medium you want me to see how to make to bring into that demonstration, let me know, because I know there's more out there that I'm not thinking of at the moment. So think of it and put them down in the comments of the replay or whatever, and I will add it into the list. Because again, it'll probably be, I'll start out with a 3. Okay, yeah, that's fine. That's fine. That's why I like on the replay is that even if you can't catch it live, you can still go back and watch the replay. So, because I know our schedules are like kind of opposite of that from what you're saying. So that's totally fine. Just as long as I'm getting the information out that you're looking for to help give you guys some tips on stuff you can make and cut down, on what we're spending. So definitely look for those. And I'm going to say it'll be another 3-part mini-series, but it could end up being more depending. I'll have to think about that and research it. It might be a little easier if I pick one medium at a time. But we'll see. I'm still wrapping up this one next week, but I'll be thinking about it in the background, if that makes sense. So, all right, I think I have subjected you guys to the glitchy brain more than enough for a beautiful day. So have a great evening, you guys. Definitely take care, and I will be tuning in. I'm not sure which day of the week next week. The reason I'm doing the video today is because tomorrow I have to take my husband to go pick up his truck. The transmission went out. Bye, Lorna. So I can't do the class on Wednesday. I had to roll it to today because it's at the place up north that we go to, so we have to drive up, and it's too far to turn around and come right back. So I'll be driving back Thursday morning. So anyway, all right. Thank you again, you guys. It was so much fun hanging out. Hopefully I did get the information out today that I wanted to, and showing you easy ways to add the dimension. And then for next week, like I said, we'll be bringing in extra elements of like texture paste and stencils and stuff like that. So enjoy the rest of the week, you guys. Don't forget, like the video, comment, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I will definitely be seeing you in the next video.